If Vampyre's Bloodlord Rising hooked you with a fantasy of becoming a vampire lord, building your own castle, and dominating the night, then you already know this type of game leaves a void when it's over. And that's where today's list comes in. Because yes, if you enjoyed playing as Dragos in Sangavia, balancing bloodlust, story-altering decisions, and that gothic I'm in charge here vibe, you need more experiences with that same energy. So stick with me. I've picked out 10 games that deliver at least one of those sensations. Look, Immortal Realms Vampire Wars is exactly the kind of game you need to know about if you enjoyed the Vampire Empire building and strategic management vibe of Bloodlord Rising. The difference here is that instead of focusing on action and open world exploration, you're diving into a deep turn-based strategy that mixes kingdom management with tactical combat and a unique card system. There are 3 full campaigns, each with 4 acts, where you take control of different vampire lords from the Dracul, Nosfernis, and Moria clans, each with their own mechanics, exclusive units, and intertwined stories in the dark world of Namire. It's the kind of game that catches you off guard with its depth, especially after the first act when the difficulty spikes and you realize you can't just hoard resources and stay in your corner because the enemies are coming for you. What makes this game especially interesting is how it balances 2 distinct gameplay modes that complement each other perfectly. In Kingdom mode, you're managing your vampire empire, recruiting lords, building structures, and upgrading villages to generate more blood, which is your currency, while deciding which technologies to unlock in clan-specific skill trees. Then, when you enter combat, the game shifts completely to a tactical mode, where positioning, flanking, using special unit abilities, and the card system make all the difference. These cards represent unique vampiric powers for each clan and lord, and you can combine them to create devastating synergies during battles, adding an extra strategic layer you don't see in other games of the genre. It's quite addictive, because every decision you make on the strategic map directly affects your chances on the tactical battlefield. The 3 clans play completely differently, forcing you to adapt your strategies when switching campaigns. The Dracul are the classic vampire clan, with units that live in partnership with loyal humans called Thin Bloods, half humans, half vampires, who only ascend to true vampires if they prove their worth in combat. The Nosfernis are more bestial and necromantic, mixing weak but cheap undead units with high damage melee vampire beasts. Your strategy is to use the undead to hold the line while flanking with the beasts. Meanwhile, the Moria are more mystical and focused on magic. Each lord within these clans has their own deck of spell cards that you unlock and improve as they level up in combat. Once all are unlocked, you can start upgrading them. The game gives you the freedom to recruit multiple lords as your empire grows, and you can find suitable humans to turn into vampire lords at properties called manors scattered across the map. I won't lie, the game has technical issues that might irritate you depending on your patience. Loading times are far too long, reaching 30 seconds or more when entering, exiting combat or loading scenarios. The graphics are just okay, nothing special, and the voice acting can be a bit cringy at times. The AI isn't the smartest either, but the game compensates for this by frequently putting you at a numerical disadvantage, especially in the campaign. But you know what? The gameplay loop is genuinely addictive. The progression is satisfying. The technology trees are deep enough without being overly complex, and there's plenty of content between the 3 campaigns, sandbox mode, and skirmishes. If you have the patience for a strategy game that truly challenges you and doesn't let you get comfortable, and if you enjoy the gothic vampire theme with tough decisions and resource management where blood is currency and people are your source of income, Immortal Realms Vampire Wars will deliver exactly that. If you want a game that goes beyond the traditional RPG and truly puts you in the shoes of a powerful vampire, V Rising is practically the natural next step. The story is simple but well served. You are a vampire waking up after centuries of sleep, weak, thirsty for blood, and with an entire world hunting you. Your mission is to rebuild your castle, dominate your knightly empire, and become the new Dracula. The charm here is precisely that feeling of starting from scratch and growing your power organically, with fear, caution, and a sense of personal revenge bubbling in your chest. The game blends survival, crafting, and action ARPG very well, always with an isometric camera and dynamic combat that feels like Diablo at many points. You need to protect yourself from the sun. Always stick to the shadows, manage your bloodthirst, and choose the right moment to fight or flee, because one mistake in broad daylight can reduce you to ashes in seconds. Throughout the night, you hunt humans and monsters, choosing which type of blood to drink. Each blood category gives you a different profile, acting like a class. Some blood focuses more on magical abilities, another on melee combat, another on support, and even on castle building. This gives your vampire a unique identity, because you end up shaping the character according to who you want to be on that server. The castle and servant system is one of the most addictive pillars of the game. You gather resources, build towers, laboratory rooms, spell libraries, weapon racks, and everything else a worthy vampire lord deserves. The castle serves as your power hub, where you unlock new abilities, craft equipment, and recover blood. You can also convert humans into servants, sending them to collect resources, fight for you, or even defend the castle, creating a small internal hierarchy that makes you feel like you're actually building a vampire empire, not just a random spawn point. All of this is even more intense in multiplayer mode, as players and clans can invade, attack castles, destroy structures, and even take your gear on full loot servers, transforming every construction into something almost emotional. You get very attached to it. The game is a progression loop via extremely well thought out bosses. To unlock advanced materials, stronger weapons, and new abilities, you need to face the so-called V-Bloods, who are the great lords and monsters of each region. Each defeated boss grants you a superior blood type, access to new crafting recipes, and, in some cases, even new transformation forms, like a wolf, rat, or other nocturnal creatures that help you explore, stealth, or move faster across the map. The kicker is that even as a survival game, V-Rising doesn't just leave you grinding materials. It always pushes you toward combat, invasion, and direct confrontation. This fits perfectly for those who enjoy the vibe of Bloodlord Rising, but now want something heavier, more tactical, more social, and with a progression system that truly makes you feel the weight of being a vampire who is born weak and grows to dominate the world. Vampyre's Fall Origins is a 2D open-world RPG with turn-based combat and a very old-school feel. Its atmosphere is reminiscent of the early hours of Diablo 2, but it swaps real-time action for tactical, turn-based encounters and fights. And yes, you can get into the vampire mood from start to finish by creating your character and choosing a lineage before jumping into the map. The loop here is delightful for those who enjoy gritty progress. You explore the world, talk to people, take on tasks, and fall into combats that are always one-on-one, which gives every duel a somewhat personal weight. I like it because the game doesn't try to be frantic. It pulls you into a strategic pace of choosing exactly what to use and when to use it. And that's where it gets addictive. The premise is clear: open world, immersive story, dialogue options, and tactical combat as the heart of the game. What hooks me most is how it lets you build a vampire that feels like yours. You choose one of 4 lineages, which defines the abilities available throughout the journey. Progression happens through level points that you distribute into passives and upgrades for combat commands. And this system usually provides a good sense of customization without turning into an infinite spreadsheet. For loot lovers, it promises a ton of equipment, over 250 unique weapons and armor, so there's always that itch for just one more fight to see what drops. Vampyre's Fall Origins is simpler and more straightforward than Bloodlord Rising, and I see that as part of its charm. It feels like a roadside RPG made for you to build power bit by bit. It was born with a mobile soul, and that shows in interesting details, like the idea of brewing potions in real time while you explore, talk to NPCs, or even fight. And there's one detail I respect a lot. The official description emphasizes being a serious RPG on mobile, without those classic energy constraints or aggressive microtransactions, making it a great long-term game for those who want to evolve a character and enjoy the world at their own pace. Released in October 2025, Bloodlines 2 puts you in the role of Fire, an elder vampire who wakes up with immense strength and must navigate vampire factions, decide who will rule the city, and, above all, keep the Masquerade intact, the veil of secrecy that separates the vampire world from the human world. The brutal difference here is that the game is a first-person narrative action RPG, with a heavy focus on dialogue, choices, investigation, and visceral supernatural combat. Every decision you make changes how factions view you and how the story unfolds. The clan system is the heart of the experience, and each one plays completely differently, shaping your style from combat to dialogue options. You choose from 6 clans. Bruja focus on aggressive melee combat. Tremere, who use long-range blood sorcery to manipulate enemy blood and make them explode from the inside out. Banu Hakim, the masters of stealth. Ventru, who dominate mental manipulation. Toreador, who seduce. And La Sombra, who control shadows as weapons. Each clan has unique abilities called disciplines, such as invisibility, enemy possession, teleportation, or mass hypnosis that forces people to commit suicide. You can even combine powers, like using mind control to make an enemy drop their weapon, and then using telekinesis to steal it midair. Combat is challenging and frantic, with you and your enemies moving at high speeds, using dodges, directional kicks, counterattacks, and vampiric powers that you recharge by feeding on opponents' blood during the fight. What makes the game special is how it blends action with an immersive RPG full of consequences. Seattle is divided into 5 open districts for you to explore, and movement is surreal. You can leap from rooftops, cross the map as a shadow, drop from strategic points directly onto enemies for stealth finishers, use supernatural senses to detect beating hearts through walls, and manipulate NPCs through conversation to change their blood resonance. There are 3 types of blood resonance. Melancholic, when the person is anxious or afraid. Sanguine, when they are excited. And choleric, when they are annoyed or angry. You need to manipulate people through dialogue to put them in the right resonance. When you collect enough resonances, certain vampires from different clans will let you feed on them, awakening your connection to that clan's abilities, allowing you to accumulate powers from multiple clans as you progress. Now, being honest, the game has its flaws that might bother you depending on your expectations. Power progression is a bit strange because you unlock all of your clan's disciplines in the first 8 hours, and after that, the rest is more of a lateral upgrade than real growth in power. The hunger system, which is central to the 5th edition tabletop RPG and should push you toward monstrous behavior as you run out of blood, is practically absent from the game, aside from one isolated cutscene. Stealth combat is rewarding, but some boss fights punish you for focusing on it, and certain builds like Tremere Blood Sorcery seem spectacular at first but become more of a gimmick than a sustainable playstyle after a while. But even with these issues, if you enjoy narrative RPGs, where your choices matter, where you can solve situations with violence, stealth, seduction, or mental manipulation, and you want to feel the weight of being an immortal predator, navigating vampire politics in a rainy, atmospheric noir Seattle, Bloodlines 2 delivers a unique experience that speaks perfectly to those who enjoyed Bloodlord Rising but want something more mature, tactical, and roleplay focused. In Vampyr, you play as Jonathan Reed, a surgeon and hematologist returning from World War I in 1918. You wake up transformed into a vampire against your will, thrown into the middle of a Victorian London devastated by the Spanish flu and plunged into chaos, violence, and vampire hunting. The game is a third-person action RPG made by Don't Nod, the team behind Life is Strange. And the proposal here is to make you feel the weight of every moral choice. You are caught between the Hippocratic oath, which obliges you to save lives, and your vampiric bloodlust, which pushes you to kill innocents for power. Most interestingly, you aren't forced to kill anyone to finish the game. But if you choose not to, you will face much harder combat and much slower progression. The moral choice system is the beating heart of Vampyr, and every citizen in London is a potential target with their own story, relationships, daily routines, and secrets. You can investigate every NPC, talk to them, collect clues, study their habits, and discover connections between them before deciding whether to kill or spare them. If you choose to suck someone's blood, you receive their experience and unlock stronger vampiric powers, but you also affect the surrounding community. If too many people die in a district, the area deteriorates. Stronger antagonists appear, and the story changes drastically. You can use the hypnosis ability to manipulate weak targets, making them reveal important information or guiding them to dark areas where you can feed without witnesses. And there's a cruel detail. You can heal sick victims before sucking their blood, because the healthier the person, the more experience you gain by killing them. Every death gives you the victim's last thought, weighing on your conscience in a way few games manage. Combat is clearly inspired by Dark Souls and Bloodborne, with a more tactical and deliberate feel, where you use improvised melee weapons like medical saws, firearms, and vampiric powers like claws, a blood spear that pierces enemies, a shadow cloud that explodes for massive damage, and autophagy which drains your own blood to heal damage instantly. During combat, you need to deal stun damage to enemies to bite them, and this bite recovers blood used to activate abilities and regenerates your health. You face everything from hostile humans and vampire hunters who easily detect your race, to other mutant vampires known as skulls, who are much stronger than you. Combat drains your life and energy when using powers, forcing you to feed to replenish strength immediately. You can also use the spring ability to reach out-of-the-way locations, dash through gaps, and deal damage on impact with temporary invincibility. Progression in Vampyr is based on vampiric skill trees that you unlock by spending experience points in hideouts scattered across the city, and each skill has multiple upgrade levels. You also have crafting for weapons, medicines, and serums, using items you scavenge, which connects well with the character's medical background. The big draw is that the game punishes and rewards you at the same time. If you kill everyone to get extremely strong, districts collapse, and you face harder versions of bosses. But if you play without killing anyone, it becomes almost a pacifist Dark Souls run where every fight is a struggle. It's the kind of game where combat isn't the primary focus, but rather the narrative, driven by your moral choices, which completely defines the experience.
Could I get your professional opinion?
Vampyr the Masquerade. Swansong is a single-player, narrative-focused RPG where your decisions carry real weight, and you spend your time trying to protect the Masquerade while vampire politics heat up. The story revolves around the Boston vampire community, the Camarilla, entering a crisis due to conspiracies, murders, and power struggles. The tone is much more investigative thriller than heroic fantasy. The hook that won me over is that you control 3 different vampires throughout the campaign, alternating between them in intersecting narratives. Each has their own character sheet, with attributes and vampiric disciplines to evolve your way, which changes both how you explore and your dialogue options, like persuading, intimidating, hacking a terminal, or picking a lock. And the disciplines are very thematic. Leisha can hide with Obfuscate. Emem uses celerity to reach inaccessible places, and Galeb manipulates people with domination, giving each chapter a different energy. In practice, Swansong is much more about talking, investigating, reading the environment, and choosing your social battles, than throwing punches at hunters. There is a skill system that comes into play during confrontations and dialogues, spending willpower to force certain approaches, which can open shortcuts or get you into trouble if you invested poorly. Furthermore, using powers and certain actions causes hunger to rise, affecting your options in the moment, so you feel that pressure of the beast within even when just investigating a room. And since you are usually surrounded by humans, the game forces you to think about when and where to use the supernatural to avoid exposure. The way I explain it to those coming from Bloodlord Rising is this. Here, vampiric power isn't just damage and builds. It's information control, blackmail, reading intentions, and decisions that can change the fate of your protagonists in the Boston Camarilla. It's also a game that requires patience, as some puzzles and systems can be a bit punishing, but the reward is seeing how alternative routes and branches change your story. If you enjoy the feeling of being a strategist vampire, choosing when to act human and when to let the beast breathe, Swansong has a very distinct atmosphere, and it even offers different endings based on your large and small decisions. If you loved Vampyr's Bloodlord Rising and want a hardcore vampire without the glamour, Vampyr's Dawn 3. The Crimson Realm is a heavy hitter because it goes in the opposite direction of the modern AAA and embraces a retro 2D RPG in pixel art with plenty of blood, a tragic atmosphere, and a dark vibe that doesn't try to be friendly. It's open world, almost free roaming, full of secrets. And the story starts with the feeling that there are no easy happy endings here. The official material makes it clear that it directly follows one of the endings of Vampyr's Dawn 2 and pushes you into decisions with no room for mercy toward the remaining humans. The game has that 1/6-bit RPG that grew up and got cruel energy, world map exploration, hidden locations everywhere, and a rhythm where you're always alternating between curiosity and fear of what you'll find in the next area. Best of all, there are no random encounters interrupting you every 3 steps. You explore more at your own pace, and the game rewards those who poke around. This fits perfectly with those who like Bloodlord Rising for the fantasy of dominating and expanding. Only here, the expansion is more narrative and strategic than a real-time loot loop. In terms of gameplay, it returns to side-view turn-based combat, focusing on status effects and damage over time, and maintains a central mechanic of the series, the management of blood points, which adds vampiric tension to every fight. The big addition is battle stances, which give you different bonuses, more aggressive for physical, more comfortable for magic, and so on. So you aren't just repeating attack until someone falls. You adjust your stance according to the enemy and the moment. And if you like magic, it promises a very robust system, along with thematic things like summoning skeletons, demons, and even turning NPCs into recruitable vampires for your party. To me, the charm of Vampyr's Dawn 3 is that it delivers a more psychological vampire empire. You aren't just getting strong, you are accepting the role of the monster in a world where vampires control almost everything, and humans have become practically a resource. It also has plenty of content for those who like replayability. There's New Game Plus, multiple endings, 5 possibilities, and side missions with more than one way to solve them. So your decisions truly become a campaign style. If you want something with a retro feel, heavy atmosphere, and RPG mechanics that make you think more than react, this is the perfect B-side for those who came from Bloodlord Rising and want another vision of vampiric power. Disgaea 4 is an absolutely absurd Japanese tactical RPG, full of black humor and a progression system so deep you can literally spend hundreds of hours evolving characters to stratospheric levels. You play as Valvatores, a vampire who is a powerful tyrant but made a promise never to drink human blood again, and has now become an instructor for Prinny's demon penguins, who are the souls of sinners in the netherworld. The story revolves around a political revolution in hell, with Valvatores fighting to protect his Prinny students from being exterminated. The tone is completely over the top, mixing political satire, nonsense, comedy, and memorable characters who take everything absurdly seriously even when doing ridiculous things. Combat is turn-based strategy on a rectangular grid, but with a brilliant system where you can queue several actions before executing them, allowing you to create elaborate combos and reorganize your strategy multiple times in the same turn. You can stack characters into towers to increase movement range and perform team attacks, throw allies and enemies across the map, essential for solving positioning puzzles, and use geoblocks colored cubes that modify battlefield properties, giving bonuses like invincibility, extra experience, attack repetition, or strategic blocks. Monsters can now use Maga Change to transform into equipable weapons for humanoid characters. And the new Demon Fuse system allows you to merge two monsters into a much stronger giant monster with long-range attacks and the ability to push other characters. And this giant monster can also turn into a gigantic. Outside of battles, the game opens layers upon layers of progression systems that can be intimidating at first, but become extremely addictive. You use the Dark Senate to make demon senators vote on laws that unlock new features, improve shops, create cabinet positions that grant bonuses to character evolution, and even allow you to reincarnate stronger characters. There's the Campaign HQ, a conceptual map where you place characters and evil symbols to activate effects like extra mana, experience, or money gain. And adjacent characters have a higher chance of performing combo attacks. And the item world is simply addictive. You literally enter inside an item in your inventory, explore procedural dungeons 10 floors at a time, and as you advance, the item levels up, allowing you to grind organically while improving your gear. There's even an online pirate system where you send your pirate ship to invade other players' worlds, capture enemies, and can discipline them through actions like slapping with a wad of cash until they give you money, reveal treasures, or become allies with their class renamed to ex-hostage. What I respect most about Disgaea 4 is that it doesn't hide the fact that it's an absolute grind fest, but transforms it into a satisfying experience. Because the numbers are so absurd and the special skill animations so exaggerated, practically directed by Michael Bay, that you get hypnotized watching a meteor fall on an enemy's head, causing an atomic explosion for 1,000,000 damage points. The more you play, the more opportunities the game opens, and managing to defeat a level 200 enemy with a level 100 character using clever strategy with geopanels and reaping the experience and mana rewards afterward is fantastic. If you enjoyed the vampiric fantasy of Bloodlord Rising, but want something completely different with a humorous tone, infinite progression, deep tactical strategy, and a vampire protagonist who fights for honor and promises despite being a demon, Disgaea 4 is essential. Just be prepared, because it is extremely complicated for beginners, but highly rewarding for those who dive in headfirst. The Lord of the Rings, Return to Moria, is a great change of scenery. Out goes the vampire, in comes the fantasy of being a dwarf trying to reclaim Moria in the Fourth Age of Middle-earth. The premise is direct and very good. You are summoned by Gimli to lead a company of dwarves toward Khazad-dûm, descending deeper and deeper to recover treasures and rebuild ancient structures, while the darkness and creatures below won't let you breathe. To me, it hits the mark when it turns Moria into a place that feels alive and hostile, with that constant tension of, okay, I need to mine, but if I make too much noise, things will go south. In practice, it's a third-person survival crafting game with a procedural world, so every campaign changes and exploration becomes part of the game's identity. You mine resources like iron, gold, quartz, gems, and mithril to create tools, weapons, armor, and structures, and this turns into a very pleasant cycle. You go deeper, find better materials, improve your gear, and then you can go even deeper. Survival here also has that list of needs that keep you humble. Hunger, sleep, temperature, willpower, and even the noise level you are making while exploring and working. And since the mines are swallowed by darkness, light becomes a resource, safety, and direction all at once. The part I most associate with the Bloodlord Rising spirit is the base building and reconstruction side. You clear areas, build bases from scratch, or utilize existing ruins. and reactivate dwarven forges and landmarks as you progress through the story. The game also shines in co-op, as you can play solo or with up to 8 players online. Moria is much more fun when everyone takes a role. One mines, another cooks, another explores with torches, another holds the line in combat. And it has that very Tolkien flavor I love, finding ancient artifacts and magical items with practical utility, like swords that glow when orcs are near and maps of mithril veins. Now, being frank, it isn't perfect. And if you go in expecting sharp action combat, you might find it strange, as some reviews point out somewhat dull combat, weak AI, and long encounters with hordes that respawn frequently. At the same time, those same reviews recognize that the loop of exploring deeper, getting better resources, evolving your base and gear is the strongest part and easy to lose hours in. And I agree that this cycle is what holds the game together. So I would recommend Return to Moria, primarily for those who enjoy survival with crafting, layered progression, and the pleasure of turning a cursed place into a fortified home, rather than for those who want a game centered on technical combat at all times. Few Nights More is basically that roguelike that mixes castle defense with tactical RPG that nobody is talking about, but should be. The game puts you in the role of a vampire lord trying to reclaim lost territories. But the real twist here is how it combines castle management with turn-based combat in a way that feels a bit like tower defense, except you directly control the vampire. It's like you assemble your fortress by placing rooms, traps, minions, and decorations that give permanent buffs, and then defend all of it when vampire hunters show up every night. Combat is turn-based and works in a somewhat board game style, where you move your vampire through the castle to intercept invaders before they destroy your coffin. Each vampire lord, 8 are available, has unique abilities. Like the Countess, who starts with an extra trinket slot and can seduce enemies dealing damage based on finesse, or the one who gains permanent critical damage every time a hunter dies. The cool thing is that as you progress, you unlock random skills, perks, and trinkets that you can combine to create completely broken builds, like a lantern that deals 5 damage to all enemies every time a spell is cast, and also breaks block tokens, or a magic book that combines lifesteal with crit and multicast. Progression works in that classic roguelike scheme, where each run you conquer more castles, gain more influence, and get stronger. You can choose between 3 vampire styles, being prestigious, seductive, or terrifying your enemies. And each path opens different mechanics, like manipulating enemy morale, or gaining extra AP during combat. The game features a visiting merchant who appears between nights, so you can buy rooms, decorations, minions, and trinkets, and you need to make strategic decisions on how to spend your resources, because the difficulty scales quite fast. The visuals are charming with stylized pixel art, and although the game officially launched in January 2025 after spending time in early access, it kind of flew under the radar, which is a shame because it has a lot of depth. The variety of hunters, veterans, and unique bosses keeps things interesting, and the trinket merge system adds an extra layer of strategy because you can combine specific items to create upgraded versions with powerful effects. It's the kind of game where you lose a run but immediately want to start another to test a different build, especially since each lord has passives that completely change the way you play.